Good evening and welcome to the Tibet Center here at 151 West 30th Street on the third floor. We'll begin by saying the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dhamma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling on the royal domain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form, emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no appearance, no mind, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no object of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting,
no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are only the dharmas from ignorance to old age and death, nor there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, there is no attainment. The needs of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear, they transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awakened to surpass true complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering for the knowledge of truth. When there is no deception, in transcendent knowledge, the mantra is great. This is how Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge.
Then the Blessed One arose from that Samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you are taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the blessed one. Now generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha and Dharma and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment.
Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world.
So, last week we were discussing happiness, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of the inner peace that His Holiness presents as being true happiness. And His Holiness then presents a paradox on page 55. He says, 55. We're discussing Ethics for the New Millennium by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he talks about the fact that we've gone through the whole idea that happiness is not something that we get from being pleased by outer phenomena. It's not as if material things can bring us happiness. They can provide us with a certain satisfaction for the time that these things are able to stimulate us. But eventually, if we rely on outer phenomena to find happiness, not only does that not last, but eventually we become dissatisfied and unhappy. The things that we pursue actually cause us suffering. His Holiness says, where is it? It's a wonderful quote, but I'm not very good at finding quotes right away. No, I'm not going to find it. We'll come across it. So, the type of happiness that His Holiness is referring to is a peace rooted in concern for others and involves a high degree of sensitivity and feeling. And as he ends, he says, I attribute my sense of peace to the effort to develop concern for others. And so it's not necessarily the ability to help others, it's the effort that we put into developing this concern for others. Then he says, this fact that inner peace is the principal characteristic of happiness explains the paradox that while we can all think of people who remain dissatisfied despite having every material advantage, there are others who remain happy notwithstanding the most difficult circumstances. And then he goes on to say, consider the example of those 80,000 Tibetans who, during the months following my escape into exile, left Tibet for the sanctuary offered them by the Indian government. The conditions they faced were hard in the extreme. There was little food available and even less medicine. The refugee camps could afford no better accommodation than canvas tents. Most people had few possessions beyond the clothes they had left home in. They wore heavy chubas, the Tibetan traditional Tibetan dress, appropriate to our harsh winters, when what they really needed in India was the lightest cotton. And there was terrible sickness from diseases unknown in Tibet. Yet for all their hardship, today the survivors exhibit few signs of trauma. Even then, few entirely lost confidence. Fewer still gave in to their feelings of sorrow and despair. So, having discussed this last week, this morning, I received from a friend, a monk at Ratu Monastery, a little clip that I thought I would show you. So this was the settlement.
It was just horrific. They started sending us people who had just escaped from Tibet on foot via Ladakh.
And these Tibetans were coming in with their tape, with the clothes,
Darren?
them with swords,
Darren?
and tropical diseases.
Being sent thousands of miles to the jungles of South India.
You know, some are already sick in the train.
Each station they have to take out a dead body from the train, and then funeral, and then they catch another train to come home again. So they went through a lot.
Monsoon rains for 3 months and mud up to your knees, poisonous snakes, and rats would invade our huts and tents. And they didn't want to have a house because they're going back to Tibet, and they didn't want to go to the settlements because they're going back to Tibet. I mean, that went on for years.
Trying to live in the forest, it was scary. We know how to handle Tibetans, but 8 agencies helped a lot. I was young enough, and it was better.
My dad was in a difficult position, certainly, but he was also from a privileged background. He could have gone off and had a much easier life. And certainly my mom could have. And she didn't think that they couldn't live without her. She felt like maybe she couldn't live without them.
Oh, that's true. Long story, long story. I'm just quiet right now. That happens. Poor kids. Grow up. They have to know. I don't have no chance of knowing. Isn't that? No.
We grew up with all the pictures from those early days, and you just see, young children who were skin and bones or didn't make it.
Look how cute he was. We lost a lot of people.
He came to all the Tibetan settlements every year. The first time he came, he didn't have a proper house and a tent for him. And he stayed in that tent for 2, 3 days, 4 days. He liked it, he said, I enjoyed it.
I remember I visited a number of times. This is when they started farming with buffaloes. You see, it made red color. You see, different dress. Some buffalo, you see, looking like that.
He likes to walk all over the place, go poke into everybody's kitchen or what they're cooking. He just go there and sometimes say, okay, I want to have a taste. They're feeling shy, but it doesn't matter.
That generation, when we first, the settlement used to start, the facility very poor, really passing through difficult life.
I don't know how well many people would fare if they lost everything. And not just lost, I mean, it was stolen.
So, popcorn? Yeah. So, that's, that would have been in 1968, 69. I got there in 85, so 16 years earlier. Much had improved. When the Tibetans first arrived, as you saw, they were coming from the north of India, and when they were being resettled, they, as is said here, no one wished to build properly because they didn't want to spend the money. I remember our architect made plans for Ratu that had 7-foot foundations. And they said, 7 foot, that's ridiculous. Why put so much money into these foundations? We're going back to Tibet. We don't need, wouldn't 2 feet do? And thank goodness His Holiness came to the south and he said, it is important that we establish firm foundations. It is based on the strength of our foundations, of what we establish here, that we will have the strength to go back to Tibet. And it was such a relief to me to, I could then quote His Holiness saying, we put in proper foundations. As I was raising money and providing the money, I wanted to make sure that the money was going to actually fulfill the plans that the architect had made, and I had to be vigilant because I knew that if I didn't look, the foundations would be a little shorter than than what was in the drawings. And all that you saw here, we had the tuberculosis ward in our hospital in the settlement, where as monks would come from Tibet, because they kept on arriving, they would walk over the mountain, the mountains between Tibet and Nepal, and it would be a month's walk, and they would leave with enough food to get them to Nepal. A month worth of tsampa and dried meat. Those were the things. A little bit of tea to mix. And they would arrive without any of the, what are they called, the antibodies that would protect them from new diseases in India. And they would come down to the south of India, to the monasteries, to the settlements, and they would, there's a lot of debating in our system of education, where you take the ideas that have been presented to you by your teacher, and then you scrutinize and debate, and you interpret them. You come to understand them in a little more, let's say, clear and subtle way. And debate is, you'll have the defendant seated on the ground, and the challenger is standing in front of him shouting, because you have, in the debating court, there will be maybe 300, 400, 500 monks in these pairs, one seated, one standing, shouting at each other, this cacophony of shouting monks. And so there's all this sputum coming out, and that's how tuberculosis transmits. So we had a lot of tuberculosis. I, at one point, was coughing and coughing and coughing, and the sort of senior monk at Ratu said, you know, we know about this coughing business, and you should maybe go abroad and check yourself out. And so I did, and I was given something called a TB test, a tuberculosis test, which they didn't give in India, and it came out negative. So I was given antibiotics for about a month that got me over my cough, but it was determined that I didn't have tuberculosis. And I came back to India after 2 months, and I told the doctor who had told me the allopathic doctor who was sort of the expert on tuberculosis. I said, you know, in the West they have this TB test. And he said, yes, and it came out negative for you? I said, yes. He said, well, that shows that it didn't work, because he said, you have spent so much time among Tibetans in the debating court with all this tuberculosis sputum going around. Even if you didn't have actual tuberculosis, any good tuberculosis test would have come out positive for you. And so pay no attention to that. Anyway, tuberculosis was such a sort of part of the society in this monastic community. It was very interesting. I remember one of the finest scholars, he was a class ahead of me, he developed tuberculosis, and he went off to the tuberculosis ward of the local hospital in the Tibetan settlement. I went to see him one day, and I asked how he was. He said, it's great because there's no one to bother me. I can just memorize. I can just be here and spend my time memorizing. It's calm. They bring me food. They take care of me. And so that was the spirit with which these Tibetans approached this really challenging situation. And I think that it's sort of in line with what His Holiness is conveying here, that this peace of mind is something that we have to cultivate. We have to work at. It doesn't come from outside satisfying our desires for outside things. It comes from working at developing contentment with what we have and seeking, as His Holiness really indicates, ways by which we can develop some kind of compassion and concern for others and the ability to actually help others. This film is sort of the scenes, the landscape. That's all Mungo. That's who's been there. Who?
Mungo?
Mungo. Yes,
That's
you've
on
been.
Mungo.
You even met that was Tetong. That was
Yes,
T.C.
I did
Tetong.
meet Mr. Tetong. Is it N. Tetong?
T.N. Tetong. Yeah.
Oh, sure, yes.
Yes, I
He
remember.
was an outgoing fellow.
Yes. So the gentleman who's married to the Canadian woman, so we had T.C. Tetong, and then his wife Judy, and then their daughter Ladong, who's in. Those were the three people in the film. And T.C. Tetong was from an aristocratic Tibetan family, as the daughter tells us. He came from a privileged situation, she says, and he was sent, surely by His Holiness, to be the head of the settlement there. And he went with his Canadian wife, who chose to come and help. And the situation was tough. It was really tough. They were all living in tents. And I heard from the Tibetans they had been living up in the north, and they were, since they didn't have any skills that would be helpful in India, they were put to work on the roads and on breaking the stones to make the littler and littler pebbles to make the roads smooth up in the north of India. And then they came down to the south, and it was decided that the monks who, as I told you last week, were put into this old Indian political prison. Those monks from different monasteries, after about 8-10 years of living together there, were sent down to the settlements to reestablish their separate monasteries in the settlements. So they all came down. I don't remember if I think the lay people came first and then the monks came, but they all lived in tents and began building their monasteries, their homes, whatever, and created this refugee settlement, recreated the monasteries, and began tilling the land, because once they were sent down there, they had to fend for themselves, and they had to plant the land and live on what they then grew.
Did they have malaria medicine? Anything?
Malaria? No. I mean, quinine would have been the medicine.
Yeah.
Usually, if someone gets malaria down there, they give them quinine medicine. So you don't take it to prevent malaria. You take it once you have it. Because you, as I said last week, if you were to take the malaria medicine constantly to prevent, you'd ruin the rest of your body. So what you saw there was the sort of raw beginning of this process as they arrived, as they lived in those shacks and tents and began to reestablish their communities. By the time I got there, they had pretty much reestablished their communities, but there were these waves of new monks who were coming. My class there was a geshe who had come in that initial group, who went back to Tibet, went to his part of Tibet in the very, very far eastern part of Kham, right on the border of Sichuan. Now it's part of Sichuan province, but it's Tibet. And he came back with something like 45 monks. They crossed over the mountain into Nepal and came down to the settlement and to the monastery, and they had no place to stay. They had no place. And there was one lama, an incarnate lama, who had a house that was it was nice. And they found that the roof of the house that sort of stuck a little bit out over the walls of the house, that they could attach like plastic, and they could sleep under the plastic, like a roll of plastic, transparent plastic like that. They would put it out, and then in the daytime they would roll it up, and they would they had their mattresses that were there that were made of like cotton or whatever they could find, and they would then sit and do their memorization and their studies right there, sitting on the facing the outer wall of the house of the Lama. I saw some of them recently, and they had a party at the end of a year of studies. We had all gotten together, our class, and celebrated. And there was such happiness among them. And I said 40 years later to one of them when I was there last year, how happy we all were at that celebration at the end of that first year of studies. And they said, yes, we had nothing, but we were so happy. We had no concerns. It was wonderful. And I think I'm trying to convey what His Holiness is talking about here as he describes this, the attitude with which these Tibetan refugees dealt with you saw the degree of difficulty that they faced as they made a new life. So, well, does anyone have a question? Yes.
Was that Donna at the very, very beginning?
Sorry?
Donna?
Miss Swenson, no.
No. That was the wife. She's a Canadian woman, married to. She looks like Donna, yes, but no, Judy. Apparently, Judy had a horse, and Judy would ride around the settlement. That was her way of getting around. And there was a bulldozer. It was very exciting that because this land was a little bit undulating, and they had to flatten things out. Somehow they got hold of a bulldozer, and it was very exciting to be able to bulldoze. But the sad thing was that it was all teak forest. And so the first thing they had to do was, you saw a lot of stumps in so they had to cut down the teak forests, pull out the roots and all. And the Tibetans were not, it's not that they owned the teak from the teak trees. That all went to the Indian government. They got the fields free of teak trees and teak stumps and teak roots and teak everything. Talking about teak, they became very fond of teak. Teak in the local Kannada language is called akaru. And akaru is when I first arrived, everyone had akaru tables and akaru. They would get some local carpenter to come and make them whatever the furniture was. And then slowly the government started sort of tightening up on this, people going into the forest and cutting down. And I had a desk made, and I remember it was suddenly nighttime, and the wood arrived at night. And it was a huge log. And then all night long, the head carpenter was sawing this big thing of wood into these pieces like that to make the wood. And then during the daytime, nothing much happened. And then again at night. I shouldn't probably be saying these things online. So this was the atmosphere back then. So there was this jolly attitude as very difficult, challenging things were being faced. Life was tough. And when I first arrived, I noticed that the children, our young monks, if they cut themselves, when you shave your head, whatever, with a straight edge razor, you develop little nicks and things like that. They wouldn't cure, they wouldn't heal. And I realized that the food was so lacking in the vitamins and the things that you need for sores to heal. So I, realizing that it was going to be difficult to improve the standard of the food, I went to the big city and I bought vitamins, a big jug like this with these little vitamins, and they were quite pretty. They had these little colored dots all over them. I suppose it was a way of getting people to think they were pretty enough to want to eat. And I would hand them out to my fellow monks, hoping that these little multivitamins would help. And after about a month of doing this, the senior monk at Rector said, you're handing out. He said, come. And he opened the trash can, and it was full of vitamins. No one trusted this Westerner. He came out with. Well, so that was life and as His Holiness said, there was a contentment. So, and there was terrible sickness from diseases unknown in Tibet. Yet, for all their hardship, today the survivors exhibit few signs of trauma. Even then, few entirely lost confidence. Fewer still gave in to their feeling of sorrow and despair. I would even say that once the initial shock had passed, the majority remained quite optimistic and, yes, happy. Yes, I can vouch for that. And that's a happiness that His Holiness is trying to inspire in us, and it's not a happiness that we, suddenly have. It's something like all these spiritual qualities that His Holiness talks about here, has to be developed. I mean, we can think about it and admire it, but we have to really actually work on ourselves to get to that. The indication here is that if we can develop this quality of inner peace, no matter what difficulties we meet with in life, our basic sense of well-being will not be undermined. It also follows that though there is no denying the importance of external factors in bringing this about, we are mistaken if we suppose that they can ever make us completely happy. I think that that's something that we have to really work at cultivating. And that's done through analytical meditation, coming to recognize the truth of that, and coming to think about the ways in which we see that, and think about the contentment, this quality of contentment that we have to cultivate. And if we think about it at the beginning of our day, and if we can thereby become a little more aware of it throughout the day, we can actually say, oh, I don't need that, or and I think that in our current environment, in our current situation, it's not easy. Everything about today's culture makes us think that why not just indulge? Why not just do that? That's sort of the basic, what would you call it? The basic mood of our time. And I think it's important to maintain a certain control over that. Of course, there are things that we need. And of course, it's stupid to forego those things that make life truly work better. But there are so many things, there are so many situations, there are so many indulgences that we might be wiser to work towards avoiding, and developing the ability to ascertain and the wisdom to know when to indulge and when not to. That's our responsibility. It's not a law. It's not and it's fighting against the sort of current of our day. But I think that those are the little things that we can do and must do if we wish to arrive at the kind of deeper satisfaction and the happiness that comes from satisfaction that His Holiness is describing here.
So, describing the happiness of this Tibetan refugee community, how much of that do you think is due to, number one, her spiritual development, and then, secondly, the fact that this was a communal kind of activity?
So, I think that the fact that these Tibetans were coming from I don't say this in a condescending way, but they were coming from the Middle Ages. I mean, Tibet's standard of living and way of life back in 1959 was not 20th century. It was from a different time, and they had been living surely not an easy life wherever they were, and I think that the ability to deal with life with certain, they were rugged mountain people who were facing new problems. They were in the south of India, in the flatlands. However, they were rugged people. They were tough. All of the sort of spiritual, you ask whether the sort of spiritual, there might have been a spirit, whether the spiritual aspect of their upbringing would have helped. Definitely. Sort of, I don't know, melded into Tibetan culture are notions of being satisfied with what you have, wishing to help others. So yes, I think that the spiritual, their spiritual training would have definitely helped. What's the other element that you?
Well, I guess
communal, the community. In terms of community, yes, I think that the fact that they were facing these things together as a group would definitely have helped. Yes.
And in your own experience, I am certain that you did not, were used to different things from those Tibetans that many years ago. And how's your experience in the monastery? Did you become happy?
I think I was happy. I mean, there were times when it was difficult because I didn't know the language. I couldn't even speak to anyone. But they were very nice to me.
They were very what?
Nice to me.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, they did everything they could to make me comfortable and happy. They were very kind to me. I don't know why, because a lot of Westerners who went down there weren't so nicely treated. They were very nice to me.
That they felt as a family, and that kind of sincerity, I'm sure.
And I was slowly able to bring though I didn't get them to take their vitamins, I did work towards improving the.
And you said earlier that you couldn't get them to like Mozart.
No, I couldn't get them to like Mozart. But I remember the head monk saying, as I was trying to improve the quality of the food, and he would say, "We're not trying to get it to be like this. I know it's like this. We have to get it to be around." And he really wanted to ensure that we were keeping things simple. And there was that was important to him. It wasn't that it would be a waste of money. It was that in a monastery, in a refugee settlement, we are trying to keep things simple. And that was I was learning something too about working towards getting to an adequate standard rather than a.
Are things still simple?
It's interesting, but the situation in all the monasteries has improved tremendously. At Ratu, we've managed to really keep things healthy. Took years to introduce things like whole brown rice and whole wheat flour for the bread and things, and we've arrived. They actually appreciate the whole wheat flour more than they, when they go to another monastery and have the white flour bread, they think this has no vitality. I tried hard to.
Last week you mentioned about the apples.
Yes.
Was vitamins prior to the apples?
Yes, but apples. I mean, so. Did I mention that second lot of apples when they arrived, they were not so good, and
But there were more of them. Everybody
we were each given a half a box.
Wow.
And the tricky thing was who got the box.
I see the box was quite.
But then the apples were mealy, and everyone became very generous with their apples. And among the younger monks, there were even apple fights. It got down to that level.
Applesauce.
No, mealy apples don't make such good apples. Anyway, we only got them twice. What's so amazing is that today the local vendors come with their trucks and or carts or whatever, and they have apples that come from goodness knows where, Chile, all parts of the world. You get everything everywhere today, even in the Tibetan refugee settlements in the state of Karnataka.
Do they have clean water?
So the water is from the aquifers, and we are fortunate to still have water. We filter it, and so yes, it's clean because you get very sick. There are all sorts of things that come from having the unclean water. So yes, it's clean. And Tibetans are very fond of boiled water. It's as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, boiling hot water is the first medicine. It's the first medicine. So whatever your ailment might be, start with hot water. Okay. So, we are on page 56. Certainly, our constitution, our upbringing, and our circumstances all contribute to our experience of happiness. So our constitution, our upbringing, and our circumstances. So last week we talked a little bit about karma. And I think that these three, our constitution, our physical constitution, the environment within which we are brought up, and our circumstances, our, let's say, our socioeconomic situation, are all the result of our karma. Karma is, though we're talking about secular ethics here, I think karma is something so important to consider, to think about, to bear in mind, because we are responsible for our karma. Karma means action. Our actions are actions that we engage in, and the more we do so with some kind of assuming responsibility for the actions we engage in, the more we're able to work towards vying in a positive direction rather than a negative one. And what is positive versus negative? Basically, it's whether we are engaging in actions that are of benefit to others or don't harm, or whether we are acting in ways that are basically selfish and self-centered. So these three, our constitution, our upbringing, our circumstances, what we are experiencing today is the result of how we behaved in the past. So we talk about karma and we are the result of our karma, and we are the result of our mental afflictions, the habits, the mental habits that we have acquired from beginningless time. And we can't do much about our karma. Our past karma has the force that it has, and we are born in the situation that we're born in. We are born in the socioeconomic situation that we find ourselves in. We are born with the health that we have. We are born in the environment that is the result of what we have done. These mental afflictions that accompany us are also the result of how we behaved in the past. But we do have to assume responsibility for how we behave in the situation today and the direction that we go in from now on. So the karmas, the actions that we engage in now, determine the future. The degree to which we master work at countering these mental afflictions will determine our future. So what this means is that we have control over the future, and it is really up to us to work at developing the ability to control, working at developing the mastering the methods by which we can assume that control. We can all agree that the lack of certain things makes its attainment all the harder. So let's consider these in turn. Good health, friends, freedom, and a degree of prosperity are all valuable and helpful. Good health speaks for itself. We all desire it. Similarly, we all need and want friends, no matter what our situation or how successful we become. I've always been fascinated by watches, but although I am particularly fond of the one I generally wear, it never shows me any affection. In order to attain the satisfaction of love, we need friends who can return our affection. Of course, there are different kinds of friends. There are those who are really the friends of status, money, and fame, and not friends of the person who possesses these things. But I refer to those who are there to help us when we encounter a difficult stage in life, and not those who base their relationship with us on superficial attributes. So that's good health, friends. Now, freedom. Freedom in the sense of liberty to pursue happiness and to hold and express personal views, likewise contributes to our sense of inner peace. In societies where this is not permitted, we find spies who pry on the lives of every community, even the family itself. The inevitable result is that people start to lose confidence in one another. They become suspicious and doubt others' motives. Once a person's basic sense of trust is destroyed, how can we expect them to be happy? So I think we can consider ourselves very fortunate that we have freedom. Some of you may think, well, we don't have as much freedom as we should have, but we have freedom. Gosh, we don't have total freedom from technology, but prosperity too. Not so much in the sense of having an abundance of material wealth, but more in the sense of flourishing mentally and emotionally makes a significant contribution to our sense of inner peace. So here, prosperity means flourishing mentally and emotionally. Now, I think that this prosperity is something that we have to work at, we have to cultivate, here again, we might think of the example of the Tibetan refugees who prospered in spite of their lack of resources. So indeed, each of these factors, health, friends, freedom, prosperity, plays an important part in establishing a sense of individual well-being. Yet without a basic feeling of inner peace and security, they are of no avail. Why? Because as we saw, our possessions are themselves a source of anxiety. So are our jobs insofar as we worry about losing them. Even our friends and relatives can become a source of trouble. They may get sick and need our attention when we are busy with important business. They may even turn against us and cheat us. Similarly, our bodies, however fit and beautiful they may be at present, must eventually give in to old age. Nor are we invulnerable to sickness and pain. Thus, there is no hope of attaining lasting happiness if we lack inner peace. Maybe we should stop there. So, homework is to develop inner peace, okay? Sir. So we're being asked to pray for Senator Lindsey Graham, Mrs. Tong's brother Ronald Chan Dong-kun, who passed away 2 days ago, Louise Lasser, Bonnie Tyler, George Soros died?
Spelled differently.
Oh. George Soros died. Another George Soros, okay? Okay, so we will read the, sorry.
People who are being affected by the fires in the west.
The people,
Friends in Colorado.
friends in Colorado, people who are being affected by the fires in the west. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit, not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those along with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the Father of those gods. He is the King of noble ones. He is the guide who was sojourning to the city of Nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One ever has not seen. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the sun. He is not possessed by galaxies. His actions are in control. He has completely confidence. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfect in all his wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who abides in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in Nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells in the Bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All of these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavata. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good at the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. And completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings security and insight with the wise.
The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is the real Dharma in the mind. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is purity. It is trustworthy. It puts an end to the journey. That's the disciple of the great Dharma. They enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joint palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are filled with glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the left. Pure are the thoughts free from passion. Virtuous liberate from all arousals. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are wholly filled with merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the relations are inconceivable.
May they be born in a completely pure realm. The 8 verses for training the mind. With the determination to accomplish
whenever I associate with others and learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, I respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings, and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others have jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an transfer return on the back. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my members. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as life illusions, to be released from the bondage of attachment.
now the prayer for a swift return. Exalted wisdom of all features gathered in a drop, so refuge
manifests in the form of one who wears strap on ropes, Guru lost among Please bear with us here today, with our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great fortune doctrine, accomplished from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers. Lord, the speech of the victor of such teachings, spread again to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. The holy commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet when withdrawn activities of the form body serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of this supreme actions? Though impossible for you so sickly consistent end, to imagine your commitment to liberating all beings, we beseech the new Son of Dharma to swiftly return to the realm of Dharma, brought forth by virtue and by spirit. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and witnesses, please trust with me as an unrivaled supreme illumination, full of the Savior's teachings, and wish you returns the glory of the lost continent day. Magnitude of the precursor angels, may he spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face.
Thank you. So next Wednesday, we will have class in New Jersey at 502 North Ridgewood Road, 7 o'clock in South Orange, New Jersey. And next Saturday, there is no Tara, but the Saturday after that, we have Tara in New Jersey as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.